test in med school, I got this. I am built for this shit. Pre-med classes, I had a system. I'd study, I'd get like 90%, knock this shit out of the park. MCATs were hard, but I did pretty all right. Bottom line is that I am a test-taking machine. So test number 1, let's do this. Oh shit, this is pretty hard. Come on, Priyanka, you study your ass off. Like, you know this. Come on, you're gonna be fine. 79? I usually get 97s. This can't be right. You know what? You'll get it the second time. Test number 2, Priyanka, come on, just study harder. Come on, you can do this. Test number 2, you got this. Another mediocre score? What? Okay, you know what? You're gonna just give up all extracurriculars and just buckle down, all right? Like, this is not you. Come on. Test number 3, again? Test number 4? Shit. Okay, what did the administration say that first week of med school? It was like a how to study lecture. What did they say? In medical student education, it is important to optimize consolidation of lecture material. So, for every 1 hour of lecture, we recommend at minimum at least 1 hour in preview and 1 hour in review. Okay, so we have lecture from 8 to 5 p.m. with a 1 hour lunch break, 5 days a week. So that's 8 hours a day. Wait, so that would be 8 hours of preview and 8 hours of review? Wait, that's 24 hours. 5 days a week. So I don't have time to like eat or sleep or take a shit. You know what? I'll just do what the upperclassmen told me to do. They said, stop going to lecture and just watch the lectures online at 2 times speed. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, test number 5. Again? Test number 6, 7, 8? I don't understand. I've studied so hard. It's like med school is just one big test. You just take naps in between. I mean, if this is how I'm doing on these small exams, how am I going to do on step 1? I didn't think it was possible to get PTSD from taking tests until I went to med school. And the administration, they would just talk about one test and one test only, the most important test of them all. You guys know the SATs, right? So like imagine the SATs except with like biblical level flooding. I mean, it was the mother of all tests. They would speak of this test like the ring of Lord of the Rings. One test to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. And they would call it Step 1. What a terrible name. How am I going to do well on Step 1 if I can just get through these tests mediocrely? I mean, this test is going to determine everything. It's going to determine where I'm going to live, where I'm going to practice, what specialty I'll go into. I mean, whether I'll be separated from my loved ones. I mean, it's everything. People would study for this test for 2 years. You couldn't just pass the exam. You had to do extremely well if you wanted to have any sort of control in your future. The administration, they made it clear that if you do not pass, well then, your entire existence has no meaning. You are a disgrace upon your ancestors. A waste of space. And no one will ever love you again or be able to quell the disappointment in your heart because you won't be worth anything. And no one will come to your funeral. Because you won't be a doctor. And if you're not a doctor, well then, what are you? Have a nice weekend. So the pressure was real. And it was pretty standard procedure if you started to lose your mind. Dear Step 1 gods, I swear upon my college-ruled brow that I will study so hard and so well, and I will give up all sins like sex and drugs and alcohol and gluten and social media and all forms of entertainment, and I will give up all happiness like sugar and puppies, and I will live off of the air and sunlight and knowledge in my books. Just please, 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 Step 1 gods, please just help me pass and ace this exam. Amen. Anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, And while I'm doing this show right now and actually talking about this test years later, I mean, I literally feel my armpits sweating. I'm feeling anxious, and I'm totally expecting a med school administrator to come up to me after the show. I'm sorry, Priyanka, but based off of your performance on Step 1, we just don't see the show being successful. In fact, while I was writing the show, I heard about another doctor's experience taking Step 1. She passed, but her score was so-so. She wept in her car, composed herself, and then went back to work. Meanwhile, her classmate checks her score, calls 911, says, "I'm gonna kill myself," and hangs up. She's dead before the ambulance arrives. She failed by 1 point. A lot of doctors fail Step 1. But what they don't tell you is that if you don't pass the test, the administration will then meet with you and not only remind you that you can take the test again, but then they will share with you story after story of other doctors that failed Step 1 and still went on to have great careers in medicine. They just don't tell you those stories beforehand. Where were those stories the morning she got her results? There's not a lot of data that track med students' deaths by suicide because if you don't track a problem, it doesn't exist. Ironically, if a med student contracts syphilis, you're required by law to report the disease. But if a med student dies by suicide, there's no mandate that requires reporting. If someone has to die, if blood is being shed, then this blood whose chemical composition we have studied and memorized and know by heart, then this blood is on the hands of the administration, the system. We took a Hippocratic oath. And in the oath it says, "I will prevent disease whenever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure." When it comes to suicide, prevention is the only cure. So, I get my Step 1 score. A few points above national average. I mean, I've known this for weeks, but I can't get over it. Something has changed. It's like simple things like going to the grocery store, waking up in the morning. It just feels like a gargantuan task now. And I'll do my job and I'll go in and I'll answer the questions with a smile on my face, but it's like my mind has turned into this like little dinghy. And I'm just floating, floating, floating. It's getting harder to think. I mean, it's just my senses are dull. It's like my brain's getting filled up with smoke. I don't have interest anymore in things. I mean, there's no time to have interest when your life revolves around going back and forth to the hospital. And the fatigue. I mean, there just aren't enough hours to cure the fatigue. Did I mention the sadness? I feel so sad, hopeless even. The other day I had this dream where I was drowning and I got swept away in this flood and I'm drowning and right before I die I woke up and I felt sad that it wasn't true. Because I was alive and it meant I'd have to go into the hospital, keep taking more tests. I had no idea what was going on at the time. And I wouldn't have known shit if it wasn't for my third year during my psychiatry rotation when I met Dr. Earl, a brilliant psychiatrist. He had a bit of a mad scientist vibe to him. Okay, Priyanka, for this next patient, he's a young man. He's admitted himself to the hospital. I want you to give me your assessment and plan. Hi, I'm Dr. Wali. Why don't you tell me what's been going on with you? I don't see the point of living. I feel totally worthless. I know, right? I mean, do you ever feel guilty even though you've done like nothing wrong? Yeah, all the time. Huh. Do you ever feel like you have no energy no matter how much you sleep? Yeah, of course. Let me ask you something. Do you think life has no meaning? Of course life has no meaning. We're just specks. We're just specks in a larger system. Specks in a larger system. God, I mean, I had never put such a fine point on it. So, Priyanka, what is your assessment of this patient? I mean, he seems fine to me. Priyanka! This patient is clinically depressed. He needs to be started on antidepressants immediately. He's a huge suicide risk. Shit. I mean, there's literally no difference between me and this guy. It's just that I'm a med student. He's not. I mean, if he's a huge suicide risk, then what does that make me? Now, any diagnosis of depression comes from a book in psychiatry with a very formal name called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM. It's not exactly beachside reading. And in order to be diagnosed with depression, one has to meet 5 out of the 9 criteria over a 2-week period. And the depression can't be due to a substance like drugs or alcohol, or a medical condition like a thyroid problem, So I get it, healthcare is expensive, so I'll go through the DSM criteria and you can ask yourself if you meet these criteria. Feel free to cheer as I go through them. Remember, you just need 5 out of the 9. Okay, number 1, depressed mood most of the day. Check. Number 2, inability to concentrate nearly every day. Check. Number 4, increased feelings of guilt and worthlessness. Check. Number 5, fatigue. Double check. And number 6, or number 5, or whatever number, decreased interest in most activities. And number 6, your name is Priyanka Wali, and you're going through an oppressive medical system. Hi, yes, Priyanka. Hi, it's me, the DSM. Yes, you are depressed. Okay, well, I guess I'm definitely depressed. I wonder what the data says about the treatment for depression. Initial treatment of major depression includes cognitive behavioral therapy with or without the use of antidepressant medications. Maybe I should start cognitive behavioral therapy. Hey, Dad? Yeah, I'm okay, except I'm depressed. Yeah, I think I'm going to start something called cognitive behavioral therapy. No, that's not something only white people do. Well, I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to find someone at the university. Yeah, I'm going to keep taking the vitamin D supplements. Yeah. University Mental Health Services, how can I direct your call? Hi, I'm a med student and I've been feeling clinically depressed and I think I need cognitive behavioral therapy. Wonderful. Are you feeling suicidal? No, I'm not actually feeling suicidal, but, thanks for asking. If you're not feeling suicidal, then our next appointment is in 12 weeks. 12 weeks? Well, what if I am feeling suicidal? Would that get me an appointment sooner? If you are suicidal, then you need to call 911. Thank you for calling. Well, that's nuts. You know what? I think I'll just find a therapist outside of the school network. And, God, maybe I should just find a psychiatrist too, just to make sure I'm covering all my bases. My psychiatrist is a quiet man. He had like a Yoda-like quality to him. His name was Dr. Hay. Like, hey, Priyanka. Dr. Hay, I am. Now, I was a good medical student, so I approached him like I would have approached any clinical instructor. Hi, Dr. Hayes. So as you're aware, I've been feeling clinically depressed and I meet all the criteria for clinical depression as according to the DSM, meeting 5 out of the 9 criteria in a 2-week period of beyond. And I've been reading all the evidence-based literature, including references from PubMed and the American Psychiatric Association for the treatment of mild to moderate depression. So as you know, the treatment for mild to moderate depression includes cognitive behavioral therapy, plus or minus the use of medications, including SSRI medications. Side effects of those medications may include runny nose, explosive diarrhea, suicidal thoughts, loss of hair, loss of libido, loss of energy, loss of money because you're spending it in therapy, decreased desire to masturbate, copulate, procreate, and increased thoughts of quitting med school. See this, I do. Anyways, Dr. Hay, based off of the literature, I mean, I'm not feeling suicidal or anything, and you, of course, are the board-certified specialist, but do you think there might be enough indication at this time for having me start SSRIs, or do you think we should wait? Time for antidepressants, it is not. Oh. Severe depression, you have not. I was surprised. I thought he was going to put me on meds, but apparently I wasn't sick enough for meds. Yet.